Every year, hundreds of thousands of older adults end up in the emergency room, not because of a heart attack, not because of a stroke, but because their legs simply gave out. A moment on the stairs, a trip getting up from a chair, a split second of instability that changed everything. And the heartbreaking part is that most of them were walking every single day. I am Dr. William Lee, and after more than 15 years working with patients, I have sat across from too many men and women in their 60s, 70s, and 80s who did everything they were told. They walked, they stayed active, and they still ended up weaker, less stable, and more dependent than they ever imagined they would be at this age. What nobody told them, what the 10-minute appointment simply did not have time to explain, is that walking and building leg strength are not the same thing. They never were. What I am going to share with you today is the one exercise that changes that. One movement, no gym, no equipment, about 6 minutes per session, and the research behind it is unlike anything else I have seen in the field of muscle preservation for older adults. I will explain exactly what it is, how to do it safely regardless of your current fitness level, and why the science works the way it does in a way that most people have never heard explained clearly. Stay with me until the end, because the part about what your muscles are actually releasing into your bloodstream when you do this, that is the piece that will completely change how you think about exercise and aging. But before we get into the first piece of this, I want to ask you something directly. Tell me in the comments how old you are and whether you have noticed any weakness or instability in your legs in the past year or two. Getting up from a low chair, climbing stairs, feeling unsteady on uneven ground. I read those comments, and what this audience tells me shapes what I cover next. So take 5 seconds and leave that for me. Now, let me start with a question that sounds simple but is not. What is a muscle, really? We throw the word around like we understand it, but a muscle is not just tissue attached to a bone. A muscle is a conversation. It is a continuous back and forth between your brain and your body, carried in the language of electrical signals and chemical responses. Every time you move, your brain fires a signal through a nerve, and that signal tells a specific group of muscle fibers to contract, sometimes just a few fibers, sometimes thousands depending on how hard the job is. And that is exactly where the walking story starts to fall apart. When you go for a normal walk, a comfortable pace, the kind your doctor probably recommends, you are using somewhere around 20 to 25% of the muscle fibers in your legs. That is it. The rest are dormant. They are present, but they are not being asked to do anything. And your body follows a rule that is written deep into your biology: use it or lose it. Fibers that are not recruited regularly, fibers that never get asked to carry a real load, shrink, they weaken. Eventually, they disappear. This process has a name. It is called sarcopenia, and it begins around age 30. From there, without active resistance training, you lose roughly 3 to 5% of your muscle mass every decade. After 50, it accelerates. After 60, it can become what I would describe to patients as quietly catastrophic, because it does not announce itself with pain. It announces itself the day you need both hands on the armrests to stand up from a chair. So when someone who has been walking faithfully every day for 10 years still struggles with stairs, it is not a failure of effort. It is a failure of stimulus. Walking was never speaking to 75% of their leg muscles. That 75% has been waiting for a signal that never came. But here is what I find genuinely remarkable, and this is the part I want you to really hold on to. Those muscles can come back even at 70, even at 80. There are well-documented studies involving adults well into their 80s and 90s who engaged in targeted leg resistance training for 12 weeks and gained back significant strength, in some cases dramatically so, because the biological machinery for building muscle never fully shuts off. Your body, at any age, is still listening. It is still waiting for you to ask something of it. Now, I want to pause here for just a moment, because I know some of you are thinking, all right, I've heard about resistance training before. The gym, the machines, the weights, that's not for me, and I understand that instinct completely. But what I am about to describe does not require a gym. It does not require any equipment. It does not require a trainer. It requires a sofa or a sturdy chair and about 6 minutes of your time. Before I give you the full breakdown on how to do this, I want to make sure you have somewhere to go with all of this information beyond a single video. Because one of the things I hear most from patients is that they leave an appointment or they watch something like this and they feel informed in the moment, but then the details blur. What exactly was the dosage? What was the form cue? How do I progress over time? That is exactly why we put together the Complete Senior Health Vault. It is the full set of plain English guides that cover the things a 12-minute visit simply cannot get to. The medications worth questioning, the foods that work as medicine, and the complete manual for how your body works after 70. Everything in one place, written the way I explain things to patients, not the way a textbook explains things to a medical student. You will find the link in the description below, or you can scan the code on your screen right now. It is there as a resource, not a replacement for your doctor, but the kind of companion that makes every conversation with your doctor more useful. And speaking of useful, let me get into the movement itself, because once you understand why it works the way it does, you will not be able to look at a chair in your living room the same way again. The exercise is called the Bulgarian split squat. I know, the name sounds like something from an obscure athletic competition, and I understand if that name alone made you hesitant. Forget the name. The name is irrelevant. What matters is the physics, and once you see the physics, everything clicks into place. Here is the setup. You stand about 2 feet in front of a sofa, a sturdy chair, or the edge of a bed. You take your back foot and rest the top of it, the shoelace side, on the surface behind you. Your front foot is flat on the floor, about 2 feet ahead of you. You are in a split stance now, one leg forward, one leg supported behind you. Your hands can hang at your sides or rest on your hips. Then, slowly, you bend your front knee and lower your body straight down, not forward, straight down, as if a cable attached to the top of your head were pulling you toward the floor. Your back knee drops toward the ground. Your front thigh comes close to parallel with the floor. Then you press through the heel of your front foot, squeeze, and return to standing. That is one repetition. Now, here is why that simple movement is so dramatically different from walking. And this is the physics part I love explaining. When you do a regular squat, both feet on the ground, your body weight is distributed between two legs. If you weigh 160 pounds, each leg is carrying roughly 80 pounds of load. That is the demand you are placing on each leg. But in a Bulgarian split squat, your back leg is contributing almost nothing. It is there for a small amount of balance support, nothing more. Which means your front leg, that front quadriceps, that front glute, that hamstring is suddenly carrying somewhere between 85 and 90% of your entire body weight on its own, without dumbbells, without a barbell, without any added resistance at all. You just turned an 80-pound demand into a 140-pound demand simply by changing your foot position. That is leverage. That is why this one movement produces results that walking cannot touch. But there is a second reason this exercise is so effective, and it comes down to something called time under tension. When you walk, your foot is in contact with the ground for less than half a second per step. Your muscles contract, release in rapid, shallow pulses. The total amount of time your leg muscles are actually under sustained load during an hour-long walk might be 10 or 15 minutes at best. When you do a Bulgarian split squat slowly and deliberately, lowering for 3 seconds, pausing for 1 second at the bottom, pressing back up for 2 seconds, your muscle is under continuous tension for 6 seconds per repetition. Do 10 repetitions and you have 60 seconds of uninterrupted muscular work. Do 3 sets per leg, and you have 3 minutes of genuine loading per leg. In 6 total minutes, you have asked your leg muscles to work harder, more completely, and more productively than they would in an hour of walking. That is not an exaggeration. That is biomechanics. Now, the third reason this exercise matters is the one that I believe is most important for my patients specifically: balance and stabilization. When you stand on one leg, even with your other foot resting behind you, your body has to work to stay upright. Your ankle is engaging small, stabilizing muscles. Your hip is activating muscles you may not have thought about in years. The gluteus medius, the deep hip stabilizers that keep your pelvis level, these are exactly the muscles that weaken with age. These are exactly the muscles whose decline is responsible for falls. Falls are the leading cause of injury-related death in adults over 65. Not heart attacks, not strokes, falls. And a hip fracture after the age of 75 carries outcomes that most people do not realize are that serious. So when I tell a patient that This exercise improves balance and stability. I am not talking about a party trick. I am talking about protecting your independence. I am talking about being the grandparent who can still get down on the floor and get back up without help. Walking does not train that stability. Walking happens on 2 feet. Walking does not challenge the stabilizers. It does not force one leg to hold everything. And that is why someone can walk 5 miles a day and still catch their foot on a rug and go down hard. Their heart is strong, their mood is good, but their stabilizers were never asked to show up. Now let me tell you about someone I will call Margaret. Margaret was 71 years old, living in Tucson, Arizona, and she came to me frustrated. She had been a walker her whole life, 2 miles every morning, rain or shine, proud of it, and she was still proud of it. But 6 months before I met her, she had started using the handrail on her porch steps. And then she had started holding on to countertops when she moved around the kitchen. She described it to me as feeling like her legs were becoming borrowed legs, like they belonged to someone older. We did not start with a prescription. We changed the conversation her body was having with her muscles. I taught Margaret the Bulgarian split squat, starting from the most basic version, both feet on the floor, no elevation, just learning the movement pattern, holding the back of a kitchen chair for balance. The first week, she could do 4 repetitions per leg before she felt her quad shaking. She told me it was humbling. I told her that was exactly right. That shaking was 75% of her leg muscles being woken up from a very long sleep. Within 6 weeks, she was doing 8 repetitions per leg without holding anything. Within 3 months, she had stopped using the porch handrail. 12 weeks after that, she told me she had walked up a hill on a nature trail in Tucson that she had driven past for years thinking it was no longer for people like her. She called my office just to say that. Not because anything was wrong, but because something was right, maybe for the first time in years. That is what happens when you stop asking 10% of your muscle fibers to carry the whole load and start demanding something from all of them. Now, let me be practical, because I know some of you are thinking about your knees, about your balance, about whether this is safe for someone who has not done anything like this before. Start with both feet on the ground, no elevated back foot, just a wide staggered stance, 1 foot forward, 1 foot back, both flat on the floor, lower down as far as is comfortable, and press back up. Do this for 1 to 2 weeks until the movement feels natural and your front leg begins to feel the work. Get used to keeping your torso upright and your front knee tracking over your toes, not collapsing inward. When you are ready to elevate the back foot, start low. A folded blanket on the floor, a thick book. Not a chair, not yet. The higher the back foot, the harder the exercise. Earn the height over time. Go slow, slower than you think. 3 seconds down, 1 second pause at the bottom, 2 seconds back up. The temptation will be to bounce, to use momentum. Momentum is the enemy of muscle development. The work happens in the slow, deliberate, controlled portion of the movement. That is where the muscle fibers are actually being recruited. Watch your front knee. It can travel slightly forward over your toes. That is normal. What you do not want is your knee collapsing inward towards your other leg. Keep it tracking in the same direction as your foot. If you notice it caving inward, slow down further and focus on pressing your knee outward as you stand. That single correction protects your knee and properly activates your glutes. Hold on to something. A wall, a door frame, the back of a sturdy chair, 1 or 2 fingers is enough. There is no loss of effectiveness in doing that. You are still loading the leg. You are simply removing the balance challenge until you are ready for it. Use fewer fingers as you get stronger, then 1 finger, then no support at all. Progress is progress, at any pace. Now, how often should you do this? 2 to 3 times per week. Not every day. This is important. Muscles grow during rest, not during the exercise itself. When you perform this movement, you create small micro tears in the muscle fibers. That is not damage in the harmful sense. That is the signal your body needs to rebuild those fibers stronger than they were before. But that rebuilding process takes 48 to 72 hours. So if you do this on Monday, rest Tuesday, come back Wednesday or Thursday, then again on Saturday, that is 3 sessions, 6 minutes each, 18 minutes per week. 18 minutes. That is less time than most people spend deciding what to watch on television. Start with 2 sets of 5 repetitions per leg. Not 10, not 15, 5. Even if it feels easy the first day, because I promise you it will feel very different 2 days later. After 1 week, move to 3 sets of 5. After 2 weeks, 3 sets of 8. After a month, 3 sets of 10. When 10 repetitions feel manageable, that is when you add resistance. A 1 gallon jug of water in each hand, a backpack with a few books inside. Your body does not distinguish between a dumbbell and a bag of rice. It only knows load. Now, I want to come back to something I mentioned in the beginning, the piece about what your muscles are actually releasing when they do serious work, because I think this is the most underappreciated aspect of leg strengthening for older adults. There is a family of proteins called myokines. Myokines are released by muscles during contraction, but not low-level contraction like walking. They are released during high-demand contraction, the kind that happens during a Bulgarian split squat. And what myokines do is extraordinary. They reduce systemic inflammation, they support blood sugar regulation, they have been linked to slower cognitive decline. There is ongoing research into their relationship with immune function and cellular health. Your leg muscles are the largest muscle group in your body. When you truly activate them, when you ask them for real work, they flood your bloodstream with chemical messengers that travel to your heart, your brain, your pancreas, your immune system. Low-level activity like walking produces a small trickle of these compounds. A genuine resistance challenge opens the floodgates. This is why 6 minutes of real muscular demand can produce systemic benefits that an hour of comfortable walking simply cannot match. Because intensity matters. Demand matters. Your body does not respond to what is easy. It responds to what is hard. And I want to be honest with you about something else, because I would not be doing my job if I glossed over this. This exercise is not magic. Biology requires consistency. If you do this once and never again, nothing changes. If you do it for 2 weeks and stop, you gain a small benefit and then lose it. The transformation, the kind where you notice it getting out of a car, where you feel it carrying groceries up the front steps, where you catch yourself thinking your legs feel younger than they have in years, that takes 3 months of consistency. 6 months to see real change in how you look and move. A year to make it a lasting part of how your body functions. But here is the thing, that year is going to pass regardless. The only question is whether you want to be at the end of it with stronger legs or weaker ones. If you have a recent knee surgery, a serious joint injury, or severe arthritis, please check with your physician before starting. I am not your doctor, and I am not able to account for your individual situation, but for the large majority of people listening to this right now, people with normal aging aches, stiffness, the kind of knee discomfort that comes with decades of use, this exercise tends to make that better over time, not worse. Strong muscles protect joints. Weak muscles place unmanaged load on joints. Much of the knee pain that adults in their 60s and 70s experience is not joint pain in the structural sense. It is weakness showing up as pain. Strengthen the muscle, and the pain often resolves. This content is educational and informational. It is not a substitute for the guidance of your own physician who knows your full history and your individual needs. So, here is what I want you to do tonight, not next Monday, tonight. Walk to your sofa, stand about 2 feet in front of it, rest 1 foot behind you, the top of the foot on the cushion. Find your balance, lower down, slowly, 5 times, then switch legs. 5 times on the other side. That is it for tonight. Just 10 repetitions total in your living room, in your socks, before you sit down for the evening. Tomorrow, your legs will remind you they were there. That soreness is not a warning, it is confirmation. It is the sound of muscle fibers being recruited that have not been spoken to in a very long time. That is your body saying thank you. Then rest the day. Come back the day after. Add 1 more repetition. Then rest again. That rhythm, that simple alternating pattern of challenge and recovery is the entire program. It does not need to be more complicated than that. Before you go, I want to leave you with one more thought. Most people, at some point, begin treating their bodies like a rented apartment, something they live inside but do not actively maintain. When you dedicate 6 minutes, 3 times a week, to building the strength your body is capable of at any age, something shifts. You stop feeling like a passenger in your own body and start feeling like you are running it again. That sense of agency, of knowing you can make a real physical difference in how you feel and how you function, that is the real return on this investment. Stronger legs are the bonus. That feeling of ownership is the prize. Quick pause before I let you go. If this connected some dots for you today, if the explanation of why walking is not enough finally makes sense, tap the like button and share this with someone in your family who has been noticing their legs getting weaker. It takes 2 seconds and it genuinely helps this reach older adults who are still waiting for someone to explain this to them. And in the comments, I want you to tell me, are you going to try this tonight, right? Tonight. If you are, that simple act of writing it makes it 3 times more likely you will actually do it. I will be reading. There is one more thing I want to show you about how your body ages and how to slow it down. Something that happens quietly in your blood. Something most doctors never have time to explain in an appointment. That is the next video. And I think once you see it, you will understand something about your own health that changes how you look at everything else. Stay sharp, and I will see you.